podcast. I'm your host for this one, David Palermo, because, for years I tell you I'm going to develop hosts. And the next one in the pile is Ben Gramato. Measurables, I don't know, taller than me, about 24, went to school in Oswego. You hear him on all the previous podcasts, but this one we have a special one. And this is Greg Tompsett from my boy Eric Turner at Cover One, his brand. And frankly, if there's one spot I go to, it's not a knock on other people. It's Cover One, and Greg gives a fuck still.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate it.
So, here's what I want to do. I want to play some devil's advocate. I'm not looking to argue. I'm looking to have this more be like a philosophical point of view. Behind me, my friends over here playing Madden Ultimate Team, and my heart's in Madden. I haven't been podcasting, but I still call my friends and scream about the Bills. I just don't I forget my password. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what goes on. I forget. I'm like, fuck, and then I gotta go to work. So I was a big Darius fan. Let's just dive right into this shit. I love the marketing. I love the marketing, and
everybody likes a nice captain hat.
Dude, we didn't expect Darius to come to us. We were supposed to be Von Miller. I was like, yo, Von Miller's going to be sick, but, I hope he fits whatever we do, And we have learned as Bills. So here's my setup. We have learned as Bills fans that there's many ways to win Bills games, okay, without a fucking quarterback. So when Beane and McDermott come in, and pretty much the marketing at the time was, and I believe they got rid of, what's his name, Scott Birchtold, the old PR director guy. They got rid of him and transitioned for Boyko. I'm surprised I remember that. So Boyko, once Boyko took over and those boys, it's only positive shit. Why? Because they know how media works. Meaning, you have a jar this long. So when people like me are like, oh, that laptop shit from the New York Post. Oh, come on, man. The New York fucking Post. I don't give a flying fuck. Leave the flat earth up there. I want to laugh too. Not going to go into flat earth. Not wearing my tinfoil hat. Shout out fucking Flow Gear podcast from Centric Bully, my favorite podcast. But, I'm saying it ain't rocket science. The Bills don't have fucking players forever. And now they have players, and the cap doesn't matter. I'm like, is this the Broncos? Because last I checked, these first and second year teams, and it's an old 90s joke that I didn't finish the punchline. I was a Vikings fan just as big as I was a Bills fan later. I appreciate the Bills. My dad's a Vikings fan. I would wear a Vikings shirt every Monday during the Randy Moss, Chris Carter year when Cunningham came out. Like, yo, we dusted the shit out. Yeah, dude, great years of football.
Randy Moss, one of my favorite football players ever.
Right? So I got to watch Leslie Frazier and see this defensive line rotation, see how the media will go, hey, Jared Allen, what the fuck? He needs to be in more. Why wasn't he on this crucial third down? But when it comes to the Bills, one thing I will say is, I don't know what the disconnect is. My theory is I feel that in the pro personnel scouting and even the college scouting department, if you look at things in a video game format here, you have players, you have systems, okay? And you have the general manager and the coaching staff, and you have marketing, and you have real money. And what's the craziest thing I've learned, Greg, from being the DIY investigator of this shit, thanks to Eric Turner, he got me to infiltrate the sidelines, and it was great for training camp. I could have accidentally taken out Tyrod Taylor. He ran by me. I could have missed out, dropped my coffee, whatever. It could have been over. I could have ended it. Fucking Kevin Cobb, who, so it was surreal to see and learn that you really do have to love the game of football when you get paid. And there's a lot of these adages, and I'm like, no, it's not like that. And when you get down to it, that's what you're dealing with. So for me, correcting my stash here, for me, when I see Star Lotulelei get signed and he's a one-trick pony and the whole fucking internet tells me that, oh, dude, you don't get football. It's like, no, I get that Marcel Darius could be drunk and speeding, and fucking Sammy Watkins could be doing the same. And Sammy Watkins, if we're playing chess, takes a safety, which opens up the tight end, which opens up the fucking field. So when we don't have that, and then, all of a sudden, Diggs is in town. Oh, cool. Took Brandon Beane 4 years as I'm paying money, going through a divorce, not Brandon Beane's fucking problem, but I'm being sold this porridge is like awesome. And all I'm doing is getting myself more serious seats in the stadium and the red seats in the Toyota Club and just drinking better drinks and watching fantasy football inside nicely instead of like really, like watching more football because I can't be blue pilled that hard that we're trying when you have fucking Peterman. Stop it. This is your franchise quarterback and you're running him into a fucking pile his rookie year. And when the year before that, you have the offensive lineman going, hey, for the Peterman game, or Bosa going, I don't think they block for him. So I pay attention to these, so when you tell me that like Darius sucks and you're trading away for a 5th round pick and a bag of footballs, and we have these other guys we are stoked on, not even play it down, and they're littered across the league, and these people come in and forget like how bad it was to find guys that could even make the Pro Bowl. And for Rex coming, yeah, that was funny as hell. I was like, game on. You know what I mean? Game on. I'm going to have some fun with this guy. So what that means to you and me is that guy was like the best marketing, okay? But now we're not developing players through the draft. I understand Dawson Knox. I get that. But at the same time, your team was made, you had that chess piece of Sammy Watkins. And I feel like a Darius drunk and speeding was still more production out of Latulele. And if I'm not mistaken, 2 different things. So if I'm not mistaken, I thought he was going through a lot of personal trauma in his life, but they paid him good ass money because I thought somebody saying a murder or a friend or something back at home, like all sorts of stuff. And they paid him good money. And I understand you still have to be a pro, but like they had so much dead cap, and then they do Star Latulele, and then they cut Star Latulele on a Friday. So for the lame idiots like me, that means that like when you cut somebody on a Friday, that gets buried in the media. You know what I mean? Like that's going to get buried through the weekend. So I'm here in a long-winded way to ask you, like, I don't hate Brandon Beane, but like I'm just confused, man. And like I love that we're getting talent, but I feel like the marketing is so good since McDermott's taken over with Boyko that has to be really talked about when it comes to how are we going to manipulate the cap? How are we going to manipulate the draft? Because you got players like Epinesa not getting reps. You got Singletary and Moss behind a shittily coached O-line. I was hammer the table, back up the truck for give Saratule money to Aaron Cromer and maintain the O-line. If you're such a good coach and you're coming up with a fucking notepad, see what the fuck they did and build off it. And Castillo was horrible. Before Ray Rice was on camera beating his girl, he still gave them a bad season. So I'm just going to maybe put the mic down and let you talk and just compare me, Whaley, to Beane, how the fuck they can do it. And I understand Josh Allen, and I can't. He bet on the right player's work ethic. I got to give Beane that.
So obviously there's a couple different things. I think one, Doug Whaley gets way more hate than is appropriate in the sense that I think people now conveniently just think, oh, he was trash. He was bad at everything. That's silly. He actually had an incredibly good eye for talent. The challenge is that he only focused on talent and the talent of the players. He wasn't that good at risk assessment of the long-term investment of who was going to be sustainable and stay good, whether it was players with injury risk, players with work ethic issues, and that he wasn't a terribly good contract negotiator of being able to figure out who to pay the bigger money contracts to. So you look at guys, Marcel Darius is obviously our local example, but another one is like Albert Hainsworth. Some humans are simply so talented that it doesn't matter what you do with them, what system you put them in, they're going to be phenomenal in that moment. But to sustain in the NFL, it takes a ridiculous amount of dedication and time and willingness. And when all the cheesy cliches that get thrown out this time of year, oh, that guy loves ball, that guy eats and breathes football. Eventually, when you get into guys playing in their 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th year in the NFL, that's what matters. Because a lot of guys are talented enough, and especially guys that, just won the genetics lottery that you and I didn't win. They were just born as these freak athletes. So many of them, by the time you go through high school, college, and get into the pros, they've been the best football player that they've ever stepped on a field with at any point. They've never stepped on a field that another guy was a better football player than them in their whole lives. And then they get to the NFL, and yes, now there's guys that are as good or better than them, but they get to that point and then have, the kind of setup where they're competing with guys, but they're still incredibly talented. They're still really, really good. They're still able to do those things and to be able to be in a position where, they're still unbelievably talented, but then they don't sustain later on. One of the draft examples I use is Josh Allen is what Jamarcus Russell could have been. If Jamarcus Russell had the same willingness to be coached, the same work ethic, the same interest level in breaking down his mechanics every single year down to the studs and rebuilding them with a personal quarterbacks coach, Jamarcus Russell had the physical talent that Josh Allen has. He just didn't care about football enough to put in the work to do it. So when you flip that around, I don't think Brandon Beane has some magically better eye for talent than Doug Whaley did. I mean, he has hit on, there's been plenty of good draft picks and plenty of good decisions. What he is he's much more aligned with the coach to know what specific scheme fits, physical archetypes, the kind of people that you want to be in that scheme and in that system, and is an incredibly shrewd. He's a significantly better contract negotiator. He's better at structuring deals. And I know you brought up Star Lotulelei. That's by far his worst deal, but he's probably got 30 exceptionally good team-friendly contracts that have aged incredibly well and gone well, to the one or two. You could probably add in Trent Murphy's contract. You could probably add in Mario Addison's contract.
Do you have to get me going?
A huge another chunk that are incredibly good and favorable.
Okay, so that's okay. Pause. I'm gonna throw this right fucking back at you. Shaq Lawson. To me, if you're such a great coach, man, your player's young, okay, you sign him. Trent Murphy was coming off of an ACL after year one. My favorite part about Trent Murphy was his PEDs. And I hear him and his wife are really good people from Nick Pop from the Red. It's like, these guys are people, and I hated Chris Kelsey. Okay. And when I went to camp, my ex, that's why we're exes, goes, "Who's that guy?" And is that really over my face? No shit. So I'm like, who's that guy? Like Chris Kelsey, and then I see Trent Murphy get signed for a bunch of money. And what I don't like is I don't like that. Can't you take that same value to somebody else? And then what Rex Ryan will get ripped on a lot of, he's bringing in his New York guys. Oh, of course he is. And then it's like, you have a leg up. It's like you have a leg up with pretty much Calvin Benjamin and these other Carolina players, and I feel like you fell on your face. So
I mean, I understand the frustration, but I think, to your point earlier about the marketing, marketing's easy when you're winning. So I think many of their worst investments were guys that they depended too much on knowing who the guys were, knowing where it's set up as far as the connection, and thinking that they know who to sign and who to go after. Those were their worst investments. But ultimately, when you say fell on their face, making the playoffs 4 out of 5 years is something we hadn't seen in 20 years. So they didn't fall on their face too bad. When you make the playoffs 4 out of 5 years, we've had 4 playoff wins in the past 5 years. Having that success that we haven't had before, obviously the decisions weren't too bad.
Okay, for sure. But I also think it was more of a turning age of the league too. You Peyton Manning's on the way out. You know what I mean? Drew Brees wasn't the same. Tom Brady actually left. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm sorry, but like the way this defense played this year was obviously and I think inflated stats wise. And I understand that like we need to be in the tournament. At the end of the day, we need to be in the tournament playing chess. And that's a point where I've had to give that more credit because again, unfortunately, understanding marketing, I see them take that playoff berth that Sean McDermott had and just run with it forever. And then the moves they're making on the roster is, going to the games and stuff. And it's just kind of like, dude, we got the franchise quarterback, and this kid came out of the box, not like the scouting reports at all. And he did the work. He immediately hired Palmer to help him out, and Jordan Palmer. And that's like, that to me, and what I loved about him is he laughed at himself. He goes, "Yeah, I hope my accuracy gets better too," and he's signing it, and I was a guy where I did a live draft show, and I was like, "No way, man," because what I saw happen to EJ Manuel, I never want to see another human being do again. And I heard EJ Manuel on Eric Wood's podcast. I don't think I even finished it, and my mind was blown. I don't know if you heard it, but to paraphrase, EJ Manuel said exactly what I said, which is, you have a rookie head coach or offensive coordinator, rookie QB coach, and he's going to double as a QB coach, not a rookie QB coach. He was before here, but it didn't make sense, man. Like, that's a hell of a workload, buddy.
I think what a lot of people underestimate with stuff like that is no one wanted to come to Buffalo. It didn't matter how much you were willing to pay coaches. You couldn't just go say, "Oh, I want to go hire the best offensive line coach. I want to go hire the best offensive coordinator. I want to go hire the best quarterback coach." They got turned down. They wouldn't even come in for interviews to want to come in to be able to do the job or be part of the team. You ended up having to settle for your third or fourth or fifth choice just because it was somebody willing to take the job. That's actually one of the biggest pivots here. You talk about the fact that, can you imagine a time 8 years ago, put ourselves back, even before Rex, put ourselves back into one of the, nasty parts of the drought. Can you imagine telling us that coming up in a handful of years, a player who is a first ballot Hall of Famer, former Super Bowl MVP, who was on the defending Super Bowl champions, living in Los Angeles, playing next to Aaron Donald, who got offered $17 million a year from their team, was going to say, "No, I want to go take that same amount of money to go to Buffalo"? Can you imagine thinking that that's even remotely possible?
I was thinking about going to California, and I was telling you, I believe I'm moving into Tampa Dave's house, the Buffalo guy I was telling you about earlier.
Awesome.
Shout out Tampa Dave. And dude, like, there's a sunshine tax, and then over here you just get extorted, and then you have a thing called in New York assault tax, where like people want to argue with me, and I'm like, "Oh, because it's like, you fucking idiot, you pay your car off, and it kind of lasts for a little bit, and like, cars are the price of a home that we could flip." Right now. So they're getting ridiculous. You're right. And that's a big thing, Greg, where I really want to do a deep dive. I've been pondering this for literally about a year about the stadium. I hate the stadium talk. It from a taxpayer's perspective, as a New Yorker perspective, as in like, it's a topic that people don't want to touch because they don't want to deal with the fans. They don't want to deal with hearing about it. I hear guys like reference it on the radio, like, "Hey, there's nothing we can do about it," but their job is, "Hey, let's talk about sports." And I get it, but like, it kind of sucks. And frankly, when it comes to coaches and players, one thing that I really want to break down too, and I want to talk to you about, was I think that there should be a prorated to the cap, taking in consideration the tax dollars. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
because there's a reason
in Texas and Florida how huge of a benefit it is not having state tax and a lower income tax.
We can laugh at the Jersey Jets all we want. We can laugh at the Jersey Giants all we want. But they're in freaking Jersey probably for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like the state hasn't really helped us, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously I'm always very careful about stuff like this because I don't live in New York. I'm not going to pay taxes on the stadium. But the setup for it, I always compare it to two different sides of things. I think that spending money to give tax dollars to billionaires to build a stadium is an incredibly poor use of public funds. Whether you could be helping people in need, schools, road investments, there's a million things you could do that are better investments. Also, there's a lot dumber stuff that the state does with our tax dollars than something I actually do enjoy watching and seeing and going to visit. So they could probably do worse. And I'll ask, if you go back and ask fans in St. Louis or in San Diego or in Cleveland 20 years ago if they wish they could have a bad investment and a bad use of public funds but still have their team, they would tell you yes also. So I wish they didn't. I wish billionaires paid for their own stadiums, because they certainly could, and that we didn't give them any public funds. But there's dumber things that people do with their tax dollars. At least this is something I care about, and I'd rather still have the team with a bad public investment than risk losing the team.
I think that through public sway, I leverage points that the NFL is going to do. And I personally believe that, like, through this whole situation we've had the last couple of years, whatever we want to call it, pandemic, whatever, biggest transfer of wealth in human history, whatever we want to call it, I think we have learned that the power is within us as individuals to our approval, okay, to do this shit. And once we start finding out, and people, for example, in that world of the pandemic, start showing up to, like, school board meetings, like, what the fuck are you teaching my children type shit, just asking questions. And for you're in the Carolinas, right? North or south or something like that?
I moved back. Now I'm in Cleveland. I'm in Ohio.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I've lived
Okay.
in South Carolina, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, and now we're back in Cleveland. So it's a quicker drive to come home and see my family in Western New York. But yeah, still not paying New York taxes.
So my point being is it's just like, I was in that camp, I was totally in that camp, but now knowing that, like, oh wait, I don't want to have Bills fans hate, but, like, I don't give a fuck what people think. If I could make a good expose, something that is translatable to people, to be like, yo, this got cut in New York State. We got this funding from here. We got this funding from here. And the information is everywhere. You can even go on Google and find this stuff. This is base information. And when I find out, like, the Pagulas are getting, the whatever those loans are, the PPE loans, they were getting stimulus checks. I applied for a PPE loan. I'm incorporated. I had an employee. They go, yeah, you're eligible for $274. Oh, cool. Thanks, fucking New York. Guess what? I'm moving to Florida. So, like, when players don't re-sign in Buffalo, Buffalonians and Buffalo Bills fans, yes. Are they good fans? Yes. Does it provide a great atmosphere? Yes. But with it also comes a darkness, which is fans with nothing to do but shove their fists in their ass and wonder, like, well, what about this and this? And then they have the gall to attack players. It's like, well, and that with the taxes and the shitty weather, why would you want to come here? And there's a lot of clues. We don't got to name players now that if you pay attention, they're not here. And then I look at players like, to spin this back toward here, I look at players like Harrison Phillips, where I thought he did the best he could do for a situation with his ACL thing. I thought he was he's ascending. The Vikings got a good value on a good player.
Yeah.
Now there's a Carolina guy or a guy that who the Bills signed. I don't want to pull
from
a
Tennessee,
spot track.
Daquan Jones.
Yes, $10 million a year, something like that.
7, but yeah, they paid him more than Harrison Phillips.
Perfect. So that was a big spot track I want to ask you is this something that's under the radar? Why the big signing? Explain this to the peanut gallery for me, which is me.
So, obviously it was interesting to see them pretty much redo the entire defensive tackle room. So you release Star Lotulelei, You don't re-sign Vernon Butler. You don't re-sign Harrison Phillips. Ed Oliver is literally the only defensive tackle under contract on the team. But then you go out and sign Daquan Jones, Tim Settle, and Jordan Phillips. So you add in, they got a really good deal on Tim Settle. That's actually a name to keep an eye out for fans who maybe aren't as connected. He was stuck behind a bunch of first-round picks in Washington that they were playing over him, and he was playing as well or better than him. He's just 24, and they got him on a pretty reasonable, cheap deal. Daquan Jones is, I'm going to use this in a positive way. Daquan Jones is what people thought Star Lotulelei was going to be. Daquan Jones is legitimately an immovable object. He is just a stout, big, strong man who nobody can move in the NFL. He just sits there and holds up against everything, is a phenomenal run defender, and stops what's going on. So the way I compared it is Harrison Phillips is more versatile than Daquan Jones or Tim Settle. But Tim Settle is a better penetrating 3 technique than Harrison Phillips is, and Daquan Jones is a better run stuffing 1 tech than Harrison Phillips is. Neither of them can do the other thing that Harrison Phillips could do both a little bit, but they're actually both better in their role than Harrison Phillips was in either of those one individual roles. So now, does that mean it's a good investment because you had to do 2 guys to do those 2 things separately? That's probably debatable, but they're both better at what they do than Harrison Phillips was at either of those jobs. It's just that he could do both things. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do from a rotation standpoint, who plays what amount of snaps, and then bringing back Jordan Phillips, who kind of similar to Shaq Lawson. I think they liked both Jordan Phillips and Shaq Lawson when they were free agents. They just didn't like them for the 3 years, $36 million that Miami gave Shaq and the $30 million that Arizona gave Jordan Phillips. I think they would have liked to have had him back. They just said, "Oh, holy shit, that's more money than we planned on. God bless you."
Those are my two favorites. Those are my guys, man. Like I was, and you know what?
They're easy to root for. They're a ton of fun.
Listening to you guys talk about that, it took me off the ledge. You know what I mean? I was like, you know what, dude? They performed. I mean, you had to not be a rocket scientist to see that Shaq Lawson set the edge better than any defensive end on that team that year. Okay, and that like the other Phillips comes in from Miami, and the position that the Bills were in was at the perfect way. Where like, if Brandon Beane didn't get him, you show up to his house with the Louisville, and you go, "Yo, how do you not get that value?" And frankly, I want to clear it all podcast. This is my favorite year of Brandon Beane ever. Like, identifies the holes,
move with
fills
Miller.
them. What I don't like,
holes, went and brought back guys.
Yep. And what I don't like though is I don't like playing Moneyball and drafting Moneyball at the same position. No. We learned during the lockout. There's only so many reps you have. So these fantasies that blah 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 blah. So when you see Greg Roman come in and he's split in 2 fields, the shit they did in San Francisco, all that stuff. Like they know that they have X amount of time, X amount of reps, and you just knew that like signing a Trent Murphy when you have Shaq Lawson and you're stunting his development, and that money could have went to Shaq Lawson and just stupid things like that could be repeated, man. And it's where I'm at is it's been the best one redone. And I had a question for you actually real quick.
Sure.
So on the defensive line, I think the Settle signing, I think that was a great lower, like under the radar thing, and get him out of Washington. That place is an abortion. So look,
that place is a disaster.
This is from producer Ben, soon to be another host. So first question, what do you do with Tremaine Edmunds? Young, has elite size, speed, and lacks consistency. Contract is coming up, and with other guys, you'll eventually got to pay. You tag at the end of his deal, trade partner, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's what I want to know. And he goes, you risk at me pricing him out. I want to say one thing before I let you go. The offensive line with Moss and Singletary is my same theory with Tremaine Edmunds, which is I need to see line play. That's what we learned about the drought. It starts in the trenches. I'm just your local drywall guy, okay? I play hockey after 31. I picked up hockey. I don't know shit but Madden and a lot of interceptions in that. But like Tremaine Edmonds, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like I've tried to like it, but like I've said it. Game tapes out there. I shit my on myself with Josh Allen, but like with Tremaine Edmonds, I was like, you can't bet on two guys with all this equity and then pay him both. But then he does the stuff with the cap, meaning he can. I think that Tremaine Edmonds, I wouldn't be shocked after seeing a tweet, something thrown out there about him going to the Steelers on Instagram. It took a tweet and then put out there. You got to have a trade partner. I don't know. What do you think? You know?
So at Cover One, we've gotten kind of yelled at for being Tremaine Edmonds defenders, but when people say defender, it's because we tell people, hey, Tremaine Edmonds is pretty good. Like he's a solid starting linebacker. So no one should be saying he's elite and amazing because he's not. But people also take it too far the other direction and, oh, this guy is trash. We don't want him. And like, well, I mean, he's a good starting linebacker. Like he's a solid, good start. Now, is that what you expected when you traded up to 16 in the draft? Probably not. But because Matt Milano was a converted safety who was a 5th round pick and pick him up by his bootstraps and he turned himself into something that got a contract. I got a secret for people. Tremaine Edmonds is as good as Matt Milano. Like they're the same. They perform the same. They both miss tackles. They both get washed out in coverage. They both don't get off blocks incredibly well. They both over pursue plays, and then they both do a pretty good job being good starting linebackers. But because Matt Milano was a scrappy 5th round pick that worked his way up into a starting spot, and Tremaine Edmonds was this physical freak that we traded up for in the 1st round, people have weirdly different expectations. And draft capital matters as a rookie early on. We're 5 years into this now. That doesn't matter anymore. They are what they are. So Tremaine Edmonds for me is, just like I described, a solid, good, above average starting linebacker. And he will be. He's going to be a starting linebacker in this league for a long time. He's not special. He's not elite. So if we're going to pay him, if his agents want to ask for, hey, he's still only 24 years old and he's going to keep ascending and wait till you see what he does later on in his career, and they want to get paid like a Darius Leonard and a Fred Warner and Bobby Wagner and those kind of dollar amounts, no, I'm out. Now,
right.
If they're reasonable and say, hey, this is actually what he's done, this is the level of performance that he is, and they pay him like Deion Jones and Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack and other good starting linebackers, not at $19-20 million a year, but at 12, 13, 14, sure, I'll be interested in it. Ultimately, when he asked the question about, do you think they'll have that choice, that one, unfortunately, the way that the NFL is, they don't actually do edge and off-ball linebacker. They just do linebacker. So all the teams that run 3-4s and put Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa or Von Miller out at the edge, and they do the exact same amount of pass rush versus drop into coverage that Jerry Hughes or Gregory Rousseau does, but technically they're linebackers. So that jacks up the linebacker franchise tag cost. So franchise tagging Tremaine Edmonds was going to cost us like $16 million. It doesn't even help us. It's more than what we would want to pay him.
Right.
So now that strips you of that option to say, okay, do we find a trade partner? If you find a trade partner, do you want to wait and then have to tag him and try to trade him? Or do you do it leading up to the draft this year to do it? I'd be hard pressed to now gamble what is, I think, an elite Super Bowl caliber roster on a rookie free or a cheap free agent as starting middle linebacker. So I am not in the camp of we have to re-sign Tremaine Edmonds no matter what. But there is a dollar amount where I'd be comfortable with it. I also could see when they talked about, some of those things that you understand the rumors that are out there. One of the guys, Zig Fracassi, who is a connected 30-year radio host and has shows on NFL radio on Sirius, put it out there that he was hearing rumors that the Bills want to trade up in this draft, but not with draft capital. They want to trade up by packaging a veteran player with a pick to move up. Well, What if you took the second round pick and Tremaine Edmonds and tried to trade up into the late first, and then you pick one of those rookie linebackers and kind of restart the clock on having the rookie contract over a 5-year period with a Devin Lloyd or with a Nakobe Dean? I could see a package like that more so than trading him away to another team for some random player or for something else. I think they need someone elite at that spot, or not elite, a starting caliber high-end player. And I don't think that guy's on the free agent market anymore. And there's probably only 2 or 3 of those in the draft.
So here's what I was gonna tell you is your local asshole that you're talking to was like, with Tremaine Edmonds, if your quarterback is the franchise guy, get some offensive lineman. Stop. 2 third-round picks. Guess what? As a Bills fan, throughout years, 1 through 3 starters. That's what's cool about football. Most positions in any sport ever. What that means is, fuck, what's your system? Make a top 5 depth chart for those players. Plug and play. Don't play stupid with me. Okay? So when they get Tremaine Edmonds, then, he takes time. No. In drywall, you have slow and good, fast and suck. You don't have... Yeah. We need time, and we mortgaged the future, and we're going to play Moneyball with an offensive line. We're going to end up with the same problem we have on a defensive line, which is guys who are half good at one thing, other guys who are half good at another thing. And I learned that from my local guys, Aaron Quinn and Greg Tompsett at Cover One. Not saying you said that, but you broke down what they do well on the line. Well, I'm a fan of Feliciano, but he plays like shit. But he brought a fucking attitude. He brought a tenacity. He brought a thing. Okay?
But here, let me flip that question around on you. Let me flip that question around on you, because I think we're about to find out the hard way. What they invested in the sales pitch I gave you on how good Daquan Jones is at holding the point of attack, the investment in Tim Settle, another year forward in Ed Oliver, now bringing back Jordan Phillips, having that much depth on the defensive tackle group, plus you bring in Von Miller and the attention he brings. What do we do if all that up front means Tremaine Edmonds has an awesome 5th year? What does that mean?
Does that mean he's already there? Okay. He's a good kid. I think his problem is I think he overthinks. I'm an overthinker, so I think he needs to either smoke more weed or he's smoking too much weed. That's a Sammy Watkins variable.
Needs to regulate.
Yeah, he needs to go up or down. Up or down. They tried to put me on the Ritalin. I tried weed at 29. I'm like, fuck. So when I need,
I could have been doing this the whole time.
Yeah. And then I figured out I got addicted to it. And then went out like a detox a year ago, trying to Florida, and I came home with fucking Florida shirts. But then slowly I start wearing black again because that's New York. Dark winters. But yeah, dude, you sign him, man, because like I'm about it. Like I here's the thing. I look at my dumbass podcast here, bro. Like I'm just a dude asking questions. I don't know if you follow Jimmy Dore. I've been around for a bit too. As in, like, I just talk shit into a mic about the Bills unfiltered like a George Carlin because I want to inspire other people to do it. Just do it. Do your math. Talk freely. And Jimmy Dore's like, dude, I'm just some pothead comedian in a garage. Hey, I'm just a fucking dude that's a Bills fan staring at walls because in bands and other creative projects, when you start making it a job, you don't have friends anymore. So, like, I would follow the Bills and get really mad and be like the caller that is on hold and can't get through. So, fuck it. I'll do it myself. So, when I'm looking at it with this whole thing here, I do want to piggyback with it of if I'm being the philosophical draft Jedi here, okay? You re-signed Tremaine Edmonds. That said, I have a feeling, and I got 2 more quick questions for you. Dan Fats threw out the idea of Debo on Twitter, and this is from Ben Gramato again. If the Bills could give him away for 2 or get him for, say, 2 firsts, do you make that move? And is there a way Beane can even manage it? Meaning, you already kind of answered that already. Now, there's a guy on the roster, and this also leads into another one. Poyer wants a new deal. He has a new agent, and his wife is already bitching on Twitter, yada, yada, yada. I'm a big fan of his wife because she's saying the shit that everybody else on the team can't fucking say, read between the lines. And I made that bet. I won that bet. Fuck your vaccine. Do whatever you want. We have other people who are vaccinated on the show, and it's not about that. It's about doing what you want with your fucking life. learn about it. Because you know what? Not everybody died down south either. So, anyways, how much money do you realistically give him? I think Poyer is, at least from my amateur eye, the last couple of years, not paying as close attention, I think he's solid. But what I do think is you can take a Tremaine Edmonds and a Poyer and trade him for Samuel. I could see that maybe working out, but like that would be like I think the only way you could do that if you even want to do that. But I don't think he's boys with Garoppolo, and clearly he was going to bat for Garoppolo. I don't know. Like, what do you?
So, obviously Brandon Beane jumped through a lot of hoops this offseason. They've added 13 different new free agents and re-signed 7 of our own. He spent money. Like, I'm really good at this. I'm really, really good at projecting the cap, at explaining contracts, at explaining all the different ways that you can create space to be able to do things. He did stuff that I've never seen him do before, that he's never done, adding on 3 void years onto Micah Hyde's contract to spread out money. At some point, we hit some limitation. Now, they could still do more if they want to, but if you get into something like that, where it would be a Tremaine Edmonds, Jordan Poyer for Deebo Samuel, and I have no idea if that's realistic, but just as a theoretical, we'll go forward with that idea. The challenge is Deebo Samuel wants that money too. Deebo Samuel wants $25 million a year. He wants as much money as Stephon Diggs just got. Well, Gabe Davis looks really good too. Gabe Davis is going into his 3rd year. He's not a first-round pick, so we don't have a 5th-year option. His contract's going to be up after the 2023 season. So he's going to want a whole bunch of money too, and he probably won't get as much as Diggs or Deebo does, but he's going to get a lot of money. He's going to get a big contract. So at some point here, if it was me, it would be trading. I don't want to trade Jordan Poyer. I love Jordan Poyer. I've seen people throw out bullshit about he's a system safety and that McDermott and Frazier's system has created. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that their system is conducive for safeties to look good.
Whose pro scouting report was that? Pro scouting report was that? Who brought them in?
Oh, to sign
Whaley
Poyer
brought in Hyde and Poyer. There's the last 2 signings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. There were, it's debatable in my mind how much control they were giving him at that point. I think McDermott had his hands on an awful lot of that, but absolutely, Brandon Beane wasn't there. It wasn't Brandon Beane either way. So having him there in that sense, I think that you have a player that we have no idea what this defense would look like. So if you go through every single regular season game and playoff game, Jordan Poyer has been the starting safety in 85 of the last 87 games that they've played. Every single playoff game, every critical game that this team has played, we have no idea what a Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier defense looks like without Jordan Poyer. Now, he didn't fire his agent and hire Drew Rosenhaus because he's looking to sign some discount team-friendly deal. He knows he's about to turn 31. He knows, matter of fact, he turns 31 a week from today. His birthday is a week from today. And this is his last chance at a big NFL payday. And he's seen other guys. Harrison Smith, the safety for Minnesota, for your other team, he signed a 4-year, $64 million deal, $16 million a year that didn't even kick in until he was age 33. So if I'm Drew Rosenhaus and Jordan Poyer, I'm holding up that contract to say, hey, I was literally a first-team All-Pro last year. I'm younger than that guy. You look at other deals. Quandre Diggs was another big contract that he went from with Detroit, or from Seattle to Detroit, signed a huge contract there for $13 million a year. So I did a projection. I put him at $15 million a year, 2 years of that for $30 million guaranteed. And some other money that you can make the contract look pretty, and other ways you can spread around the cap. I did it so he has no increased cap hit this year, only a $9 million cap hit next year, and then a pretty big one the year after as the TV money goes up when the cap will go up. I would much rather keep him and trade away or let a guy like Tremaine Edmonds move on than to pay Tremaine Edmonds and to let Jordan Poyer move on, because I know Jordan Poyer can be elite and at an all-pro level. I think it's possible Tremaine Edmonds could do that, but I haven't seen it yet. So if I have to bet on one, and now there are ways they could structure it where they could re-sign both, But if I had to choose one, I would rather spend the money on Jordan Poyer, even though he's older, than on Tremaine Edmonds, who I don't know if he's going to be worth that $15 million a year.
So, and this will be like one of my last points of close. You've been on for 45. I can't thank you enough for just listening.
No, I
to
appreciate it,
shit.
man. This has been fun.
Thank you. So what I'm really interested in here is, when it comes to Jordan Poyer, again, one of my favorites, dude. I love, I love guys like Lorenzo Alexander. I love these vets that, like,
Great story.
They just. I believe that you could get these first round draft picks, right, and take a guy that's been on the practice squad for 2 years and develop him into the football system, and have him be that. They just don't get opportunity because in the office you're paying these higher draft picks, sometimes $2 million a year, something, and you just can't. They're not going to get the opportunity. I mean, we're kind of seeing it with Gabe Davis. They had some signings they had to play, but when that guy plays, it's almost like a secret weapon that they dusted off, and there you go. And frankly, I love Lorenzo Alexander. I love a guy who just proves from system to system, position to position, that if you put in the work, you break it down, you can do whatever you want. And Jordan Poyer does the work. Him and Hyde are the best safety tandem in the NFL. I will fight anybody on that point.
100%.
I can't fight, but I'll try. But ankles, and pretty much, like, that's what I'm looking at here is that middle linebacker spot. Guess what? Get me one this year. First round. I don't give a shit. Trade Tremaine Edmonds if that's what you think. We need Jordan Poyer. I agree with you. Is there any last finaglings with the cap that I want to make clear was pretty much it? Like, people also have to keep in mind, like, we have an ownership and a general manager who will make those trades now.
Yeah.
Whereas before we didn't.
Yeah, willingness. I mean, obviously everybody remembers Ralph's famous, cash to cap statements about how he wasn't going to pay for future things. So there are lots of reasons fans can crap on the Pagulas. They give us a lot of ammo. They do a lot of things poorly. Like you said, they're very controlling in the marketing and the messaging. The one thing no fan should be frustrated or upset about, the Pagulas this year are spending more cash towards the Buffalo Bills 2022 season than any team in the league and any team in NFL history. They are paying more cash up front for this season than any owner, Jerry Jones, any owner in NFL history has ever spent on a team in 1 year. So for all the crap that we can give them, deservedly, for their freaking super yacht and the crap with the Sabres and the getting public money for the team, they are spending more cash on this team in 2022 than any other team in the league and any team in history. So at least give them credit for cutting checks. At least when Brandon Beane goes to them and says, hey, I got a crazy idea here. I'm going to shrink down all these contracts, and Von Miller's going to count $5.1 million, and Daquan Jones is going to count $4 million, and Roger Saffold's going to count $4 million, and Tim Settle's going to count $2.5 million, and Jordan Phillips is going to count $2.5 million, and I'm going to re-sign Isaiah McKenzie and bring in Jamison Crowder, and they're both barely going to count $2 million.
That's just defense, okay? Well, and Brandon Beane in a nutshell, and their fucking marketing makes it seem like the inverse, okay? And you're giving these guys, Daquan Jones better fucking do something. You know what I mean?
I will say it's a little closer than that. It's 47% defense, 43% offense. They are spending more on defense now, but they're spending $99 million on defense and $90 million on offense.
You know what's cool about this one? We could put premium draft resources.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out. I wouldn't mind. Give me Jamison Williams in the first round. Give me a ridiculously fast wide receiver. Our man Eric. Eric would love to have Breece Hall, the ridiculous lightning running back out of Iowa State, and give him to Josh Allen.
I would love to. I got a guy. I actually have Tampa Dave lined up to do a running backs one. So here's what I want to ask you. If you're ever down, dude, to maybe you, last second was going to text Kevin Masseri. I would love to maybe, if you're down, or even anybody that's from your team, to just do like a quick another 45 minutes to an hour draft rundown, but like something efficient. You know what I mean? I almost listened to the mock draft today. That's how much I like you guys, and I haven't listened to a mock draft I think in like 5 years. So like
They're horrible. Well, they're anyone who sees them as predictions is silly. You're stupid for pretending that.
yeah,
They are
of
good
course.
thought exercises to get the idea of what kind of players are available in each range. Hey, if I take a running back here, what kind of cornerback do we end up with? Or hey, if we don't get a cornerback by one of these two spots, it really dries up really fast. Those are valuable exercises to know. Hey, we better hurry up and take, we can wait on wide receiver because look at the wide receivers that are always left in the second, third, fourth round. Those are valuable exercises. Anyone who thinks that the best guys in the world get like 11 picks right out of 32, get 12 picks right out of 32. They get 60% of it wrong. The best guys, a lot of people get like 5 or 6 right. So anyone who thinks that they can do it predicting what's going to happen, they're stupid and lying to themselves. But there is some value in the exercise of learning who's available when.
The Bills to the Washington team to the whatever the fuck other teams, it's like getting your coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, whatever. Brandon Beane ain't gonna tell us. And for me, now I'm starting to get happy. Like, you know what? This guy's almost handcuffing himself. Where he's being smart. Where we got the vet that we work with in Carolina, and the one dude with the O name. I forgot his name. I'm drawing a blank. They signed a guy. I forgot, but he's a defensive tackle.
Greg
Obata.
Mance?
They signed Obata.
F.A. Obata.
And I thought that was
F.A.
a good signing because if Epinesa doesn't step the fuck up, your two guys you drafted this year, Rousseau and whatever, at least this guy's kind of able, like bash him a little bit, where they can do things on the D line. But now that I know that this is monopoly money and Brandon Beane brings truck money and it doesn't matter, I'm not stressed out. But I've been arguing with people for years, and now like my head's just gonna explode like a fucking Warhead graphic. And like I don't thank you for taking me off the ledge, man. Because like I'm Brandon Beane. I know you're listening. I know this is gonna back to you, but this is my favorite season of yours, off season. You saw the holes, you identified them, you filled them. No
crazy
pun.
aggressive.
Grow up. But Greg, where can we find you regularly? And I'll let you go back to your life.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on. You can find me on Twitter at Greg Tompsett. You can find me on Instagram at Tompsett Greg. You can find me over most of the easiest places on our YouTube channel. Find the Cover One YouTube channel. You can find me and Aaron every Wednesday night and after every game. Lots of other shows. Eric's Film Room breakdowns are the best. He does those on Tuesdays. And all kinds of other stuff.
Anthony, right?
Yeah, we've got shows all over the place now. So we've got 2 shows every night, all week long. Even a new show with Kevin Massar and his man Mike Bunt. So we've got 2 shows going every night of the week. So come and check us out. All kinds of stuff to keep you busy.
Hell yeah, Greg! Thank you again. And I'm your host, David J. Palermo. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe everywhere. Trying to make a regular night of something. I've been more hooked on Madden than I have on podcasting. Just trying to keep it simple.
We need some tips from you. People have been trying to get us to get a Twitch stream going.
What's funny about that?
We might need some advice from you.
What's funny about that is I'm more on the end of progression. So like I knew that podcasting would take off, so I built a simple system, which is just do the research, simplify it, go on, talk shit, document it in the description, so that I can go back to it. And point being is, I actually talk to my friends here about doing a Twitch stream. It's just like overwhelmed, but like I don't want to just do a Twitch stream. I want to have like different camera angles, and then I want to have conversations over. So I think that's the place to be, frankly.
There's a market for it.
Well, Greg, thank you again, and find him on Cover One. And yeah, he said it all before. Rewind.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. I don't know how to turn this off. Oh, here we go, Greg.